we have template inheritance. We have an actual template engine running here. And we can still do normal PHP stuff in this to render these templates. It's just we don't, we can do partial includes, we can do template inheritance, we can just generally goof off with plates. Plates is quite cool. It's got stuff like escaping of dangerous stuff, and you can do reusable functions, and it's generally pretty cool. I don't have a lot of interesting stuff to do with it right now, but to me it's cool that we can start putting data in here. So we can go to our index page and we can say, hello, PHP print this name. And when we render this out in our routes file, we can say render name Chris. Now when we go back to the root route, it should say hello Chris. I hope. It's taking a very long time. Why is it taking so long? Why are you taking so long? Don't take so long. That's no good. Is this another reserved name? Hello, Chris. Why was that taking so long? Is this name a reserved thing? Okay, look. We can delete this stuff. The default response is 404 missing. The default code should also be 404, and we probably want to do something like code is 404, and then in here code is 200, and then instead of just rendering 404 we do code. Okay, so our file serving is doing the correct response code now, and we can do different routes, and we can just pass new templates, and we can pass template data. This is really cool. I do have to check with Aaron if include is the best thing to do, and maybe we have to use the concurrent package and shift it out. And on that note, the concurrent package just got a stable tag, which is cool, which means file system will probably start using a stable tag of this, and maybe file system is tagged stable soon. Who knows? Who knows? It's all a bit of magic. But we have templates. That's awesome. What else should we do? We've still got a lot of time left. Gee, I can't believe I rushed back to this. Let's do some quality of life things. Let's change this routes to collector, just to be collector, just to be a little bit more clear about what that is when we define our routes. Collector. Okay. Then what I want to do is I actually want to bring in a dependency injection container, because I don't like passing around instances of stuff that includes have to just assume is there. I'd rather the server script stores it in a container and the routes file pulls it out of a container, or that it's available to pull out of a container later on. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring in the league container. I love the league packages. League container. League container composer require. The command league container is not defined. It's been a long day. It's been a very long day. This could be drink or something, because it's been a very long day. Okay, so let's have a look what the docs for league container are like. Close that. So league container is a dependency injection container. It's this is commonly used as a global registry for instances and for factories to create class instances. Whether or not you think it's a good idea to use it like that, you know, that's up to you, and has a lot of it can be a big discussion. But what I'm interested in doing, I don't know if I prefer the lead container, if I prefer illuminates container, because I'm very used to illuminates container. So I don't know. I don't know. Anyway, let's start off with this, and if this isn't great, then we can switch to illuminates container. Okay. So the first thing I want to do is, goodness, this is very tricky, because what I want to do is I want to mimic Laravel's service provider stuff at some point, and even the facade stuff at some point. But I don't want to dive straight in and copy what Laravel's done. I kind of want to build it up organically, so I can just do just enough, like just the stuff I need, and then not all the other nonsense. So I think the first thing I want to do is I want to create a new container. And I'll leave that as container, and I'll even put inside container a reference to container. Now, how do we do singletons with this container? Let's see. Getting started, add, get, share, share. Share looks like the thing I want to do. But how do I... How do I... Go to lead, container. I'll just look at what the container does. In fact, the interface is probably better as well. Add an item to the container as a shared item. And concrete is the implementation of it. Okay. Okay, so share is what we want to do, and we'll just call it container, and we'll give container as the instance. Now, this looks weird, okay? This looks weird. But it looks weird, but it allows us to swap out container. If we assign an instance of this to something, we can swap out container with a mock when we're doing testing, and that mock can return whatever. It gives us a convenient way to be able to pull this container out at runtime. Well, PHP is all runtime, but it gives us a cool way to be able to pull this container out when we want to. We'll also start assigning other things like container share dispatcher, and container share collector. We'll do this. Okay. Now, we can box all of the server functionality up into a class and register that class in the container, and then have static access to be able to reference this. And then in our helper methods, we can reference that static access instance of the application. That's kind of very loosely how Laravel does these things. I am less interested in doing it that way. I'd rather have a global container and just use it to look up stuff. I think that's probably the best. So we can set this up. We can set the container up, and we can start storing stuff to it. For instance, we can also do something like container share server. And this basically lets us from anywhere in the code say container get server and be able to set stuff on that. That's pretty cool. We must remember about how to set those error handlers, because that'd be useful. But now we can do something like in our helpers file, this is going to look really ugly, but actually it gets really useful later on. We can do function container, global container, global, return container. Okay, that looks really ugly. Oops, I put music on for a second there. This looks really ugly, but actually it turns out it can be quite useful, and I'll show you why now. So what is this? What is this fully qualified class name? Okay, so we return an instance of this. Maybe we can even use this, use that, and then just return container. Okay, now we can do other things. We can also delete this stuff because we're no longer interested in that. Now we can do something like we can load a bunch of helpful stuff in here. I mean, I guess this is potentially the wrong place to do it. We probably want to have a separate file and do some bindings in there. Bindings, and we'll probably also want to bring that in with composer.json. So helpers and bindings. Okay. And in bindings, we'll... goodness. We can say something like container. This is why having that alias is useful, because now we don't have to... now we just have to assume that a container method is present. We don't have to look for that variable. So later we can change that to be done through static access if we want, or a different means, but we won't have to change this code. So we can do something like container. I don't even know why I'm not even listening to anything. Container set, container make, container. What is this method? What is this? Container add. Okay, container add. Plates. Renderer. View. Yes, okay. Container render view, and this can take a closure. And what that closure can do is what we are doing by hand in this view thing, because we don't want to always make this every time. We just actually want to return this. So come back to bindings and say, when I say container make view, what I mean is get an instance of this. In fact, we can probably do share. I wonder if that's possible. I wonder if we can use... Greg to the rescue. Can you hear me better now? I didn't think this through. Okay. Okay. No, I'll leave it here because I forget the mic is right here. And now what we can do is we can say something like container get view, and this will be, hopefully, if the container works like this, I still have to verify this, but hopefully if the container works like this, this will resolve to a single shared instance of the template engine, which is really cool because this means get the template engine, and then we can call stuff on that like render if we want, which makes our helper methods quite clear. Now I need to check whether the container interface can do that. Share concrete is mixed null. Yeah, share concrete. Let's see. Container function share. Add. It totally does. It totally works like that. We can do this. That's really cool. It also means that this is a nice central place to start adding in configuration for how we get this directory. We don't need to hard code it. So anyway, let's go back to our helpers and let's make that a little bit cleaner. Here we can say container get view render. Wow, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Okay, let's do another binding. Let's do some more stuff here. well,